Hello there and welcome to harder inverse functions. Here we're going to be looking at functions that are harder to inverse. It says it all there in the title, doesn't it? So let's crack on with the little bit of a recap. Let's have a go at these quite little tricky composite functions. So pause the video and create these composite functions, please. Okay, so it's good to do a recap of things that you've done in the past every now and then, and here we're going to do some composite functions. I hope you've had a really good go at this. I hope you're not just going to carry the video on and write down what I'm writing on the screen. So let's have a go at it then. So we do the g function first. The g function performs on the x first, so it's going to be f brackets and the g function, and we'll put the 5 minus x over 2 into the g function. So now we're going to take this algebra and replace it in where x is in the f function. So it's going to be 3 brackets 5 minus x over 2 add 7 to finish off the function. So I've replaced x with this 5 minus x over 2 in the f function. I could also simplify and expand the brackets here. I could do 3 times 5 is 15, and then 15 add the 7 is 22, and then minus 3x over 2. There we are, that's the answer to part A. Moving on to part B, we do the f function first. So it's going to be 3x plus 7 inside the brackets. And then with this piece of algebra, I'm going to be replacing it into x in the g function. So in the g function, it goes 5 minus x, and now I'm going to replace it with 3x plus 7 over 2. And there we are. That's as simple as we can turn it into for this question. And f of x, well, I'll do the first f first. That's going to be 3x plus 7. And then with 3x plus 7, I'm going to be replacing it in for x into, again, the f function. So it's going to be 3 brackets 3x plus 7 plus 7. Let's expand the brackets and simplify. 3 times 3 is 9x, and 3 times 7 is 21, add 7 is 28. There we are, that's the answer to part C. Okay, hopefully those have been okay. If not, then maybe go back and watch the composite function video again and build up some practice there. Okay, so we're going to have a look at inverse functions now. A harder example might be something like this, but not too hard. This is still within the realms of the last video. So just remember, the first thing we do here is we set this equal to the letter y, and then we start rearranging. The reason we're rearranging is because we want to create a formula that takes the output number, the output letter, and apply a formula to it, and then you get back the input letter. So really what I want is x equals something to do with the output number. So I'll do that output number, I'll do the calculation relating to the output number, my answer will be the input number. And that's what it means to be an inverse function. To go from x to y is a normal function, but to go from y back to x, that is an inverse function. So in this case, we're going to square it, then times by 7, then take away 5, then divide by 2, and there we are. So remember, what we do finally is we just write our final answer with x's in it instead. Okay, so pause the video and give this question a go. Okay, so this was still within the realms of the last video, but it's good to have a little bit of a recap of what we need to do here. So we set the function equal to y. And in these types of questions, what we need to do first is we need to rearrange the formula by using the reverse order of BODMAS. Now, if I was using the reverse order of BODMAS, I'd start at the bottom, S for subtract. So I need to undo any subtractions. But I can't undo this subtraction inside the square root here, because effectively there's some brackets around that x minus 2. So I can't do the subtraction first here, because effectively that subtraction is actually inside a pair of brackets. The square root is effectively standing in for those brackets there. So I can't do subtraction first. Addition, I can undo this add 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is undo the add 4 by subtracting 4. So it's going to be square root of x minus 2 over 3 equals y minus 4. Moving up the operations of BODMAS, I then get to the division. I'll then undo this divide by 3, so that will be multiply both sides by 3. When I go from one line to the next, I always start from the bottom again, so times by 3. So I went past the subtraction again because it's still inside those brackets. Start from the bottom again. I can't undo the subtraction still because I've still got that square root around it, but when I go up, I get to p for powers. So I'm going to undo this square root by squaring. So it's going to be x minus 2. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a line in between that says it's 3 minus 12 by expanding the brackets, and then it's going to be 3y minus 12 squared. So from this line to this line you square it, and just a little intermediate line I've expanded the brackets. The final thing we'll do is we'll restart from the bottom again, undo the subtraction. Yes, we can now undo the subtraction by adding 2. So it's going to be 3y minus 12 all squared, and then take away 2 off the end. So the final answer to this question is f minus 1 of x equals, now we're going to write this answer formula here, but with x's in it instead. So 3x minus 12 squared minus 2. And there we are, that's the answer to this question. We're going to be doing loads of rearranging formulas in this video, so hopefully we'll build up the skills as we go through. Let's have a go at this one then. Pause the video and give this question a little go. Okay, so we're going to set it to y, the output letter, so equals y. Now, in this case, what I'd like to do first is anytime there's a negative x in this position here, like it is here, I'd like to add it to the other side to make it positive. So I'm going to add 2x onto the left-hand side. 7 equals y plus 2x. Add it onto the right-hand side, sorry. Then I'll take away the letter y, so take away y. 7 minus y equals 2x. And now that's just a lot better for me because x is now a positive number, or in a positive expression here. Let's divide by 2 to get rid of the multiply by 2. And there we are. Our final answer is going to be f minus 1x equals 7 minus x over 2. And there we are. That's the answer to this question. So it's really important that when you've got a negative x or a negative expression with x in it, it's always easier to add it onto the other side because then you don't have to divide by any negatives. Let's have a go at this question here. Pause the video and give this one a go. Okay, so we're going to have 5 minus 3 root x minus 2 equals y. Now the expression with x in it is in a negative format here. It's negative 3 root x minus 2. So the easiest thing to do here to sort this out will just be to add it onto the other side. And you have to add all of it. So it's going to be 5 equals, we've got nothing else left on the left, y plus 3 root x minus 2. The next thing to do will be to take away this y, to put the y on the other side. So 5 minus y equals 3 root x minus 2. Now we've got two choices here. We've got a 3 to move onto the other side or a minus 2 to move onto the other side. But the minus 2 is inside the square root. It can't be touched yet. So we need to divide by 3 first. So divide by 3. 5 minus y divided by 3 equals root x minus 2. I'll move up to this side of the page now. Now we need to get rid of the square roots by squaring, so it's going to be 5 minus y over 3 all squared equals x minus 2. Then the final thing to do would be to add the 2 onto the other side, so we'll do that on the end after everything else. And there we are, the final answer here is f inverse x equals brackets 5 minus x over 3 all squared to add 2. And there we are, that's the answer for this question. Let's move on to the next one where we've got one more negative expression for x. Pause the video and give this one a go. Okay, so in this case here, what you've probably done is you may have had to have moved x from one side to another twice. Let me show you how I would have done this one. 7 minus root 9 minus x. Now the expression with x in here, the bigger expression, is where x is a negative here. So it's going to need to be added to the other side. So I'm going to add root 9 minus x onto the left-hand side. So y plus root 9 minus x equals 7. Take away the y onto the other side. Next thing I'll do is I'll undo the square root, so I'll square both sides, so 9 minus x equals, and in brackets you square the whole of the right hand side. Now x is a negative expression here again, so I'll add it onto the other side, so add x back onto the other side, so it's going to be 9 equals 7 minus y squared, add x. And then the final thing to do would be to take away this squared bracket here from one side to the other. So take away 7 minus y squared. So it's going to be 9 minus 7 minus y squared. And that equals x. So there we are. The final answer for this question is going to be f inverse x equals 9 minus 7 minus x all squared. And there we are, that's the answer. So sometimes x needs to be moved twice from one side to the other. Okay, so this is where it starts to get a little bit more difficult. We've got x's and we've got them on the bottom of fractions on the other side of the function. So, well, I'll let you have a go at this one. Pause the video and give it a go. Don't worry though, I'll go through the answer afterwards. Okay, so let's now have a go at this question. So y equals 3 divided by x plus 5. So as I said there, it was 3 divided by x plus 5. So we need to undo that divide by x plus 5 by multiplying both sides by x plus 5. I'm effectively going to wrap it in some brackets, then multiply it onto the other side. So I'm going to multiply it onto the other side. So it's going to be y times x plus 5 equals 3. Let's now expand the brackets. xy plus 5y equals 3. I need to make x a subject, so I need to get rid of this thing onto the other side. So I'll subtract 5y. So it's going to be xy equals 3 minus 5y. And the last thing to do would be to divide by this y here. So it's going to be x equals 3 minus 5y divided by y. So therefore f inverse x is equal to 3 minus 5x over x. And there we are, that's the answer to this question. Alternatively, if you had 3 over x minus 5, that would also be the correct answer to f inverse x. They're the same expression. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So, a little bit different here then. Pause the video and give this one a go. Okay, so it's y equals 3 over x plus 5. Now the plus 5 is on the side, so that means we can move that first. So we'll do y minus 5 equals 3 over x. Let's now times x onto the other side. So times both sides by x because it's 3 divided by x at this point. Now, what you might have done here is expanded the brackets. I wouldn't have actually expanded the brackets here because if we're trying to make it just x equals, the best thing to do would be to divide by this y minus 5 here. So divide by y minus 5, and we get 3 divided by y minus 5. And there we are, that's the answer to this question. Oh, wait, sorry, we've got to write it as an inverse function. So 3 over x minus 5. Lovely. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Pause the video and give this one a go. Okay, so with this question, I'll set y equal to the function. Now, x is inside a negative expression here, so the best thing to do will be to add this whole fraction onto the left-hand side. So add both sides 3 over x minus 4. So it's y plus 3 over x minus 4 equals 7. The next thing to do will be to take away this y onto the other side. Now, at the moment, I've got x minus 4 as a divide, so the next thing to do will be to times by x minus 4. So 7 minus y will multiply by x minus 4. And that needs a double pair of brackets around it. Now, to make x the subject, the first thing I should do is get rid of this bracket here. This bracket is being multiplied onto this bracket, so I'm going to divide by this bracket, 7 minus y. So it's going to be 3 divided by 7 minus y equals x minus 4. And the final thing to do will be to add this 4 onto the other side. So it's going to be 3 over 7 minus y, add 4 on the side equals x. So therefore the final answer here, f inverse x equals 3 over 7 minus x, add 4. And there we are, that's the answer to this question. Okay, very similar one then. Pause the video and give this question a go. Okay, so we do y equals 9 minus 5 over 2 minus x. And the first thing to do is notice that the x is in a negative expression here as a whole. So the best thing to do would be to add 5 over 2 minus x onto the other side. So y plus 5 over 2 minus x equals 9. Then I'll take away the y onto the other side. The next thing I'll do is I will multiply this fraction onto the other side. So it's going to be 5 equals 9 minus y will multiply by 2 minus x. The next thing to do will be, if we want to make x a subject, divide by the bracket that's being multiplied onto the one with x in it. So it's going to be 5 divided by 9 minus y equals 2 minus x. Now x here again is a negative expression, so the best thing to do here would be to add the x onto the other side. So it would be 5 over 9 minus y, add x equals 2, and then to subtract this fraction here, x equals, so I'm now going to take away 5 over 9 minus y, so it's going to be 2 minus 5 over 9 minus y. So the answer to this question, f inverse x equals 2 minus 5 over 9 minus x. And there we are, that's the answer to this question. So that was a pretty tricky one. Oh gosh, you can see how similar these formulas are. The 2 and the 9 have pretty much just flipped themselves around. So that's a coincidence. But what we've done here is we've had to start moving fractions from one side to the other based on whether x was a negative or positive at the time. Okay, this one is quite a significantly more difficult question to the last one. In fact, I don't even want you to have a go at this one. I'll just show you how to do this one because it's very tricky indeed. Okay, so let's get started then. So it's y equals, on the top, 5 plus x over 3 minus 2x. Okay, so just as what we've seen with the last couple of questions, we put the denominator in some brackets and then multiply it onto the other side because it's being divided at the moment. The line of the fraction means divide. So times by 3 minus 2x, so y brackets 3 minus 2x equals 5 plus x. The next thing to do is expand the brackets. 3y minus 2xy equals 5 plus x. Now let me just show you something that is wrong. Let's just say we decide to take away 5 and we get 3y minus 2xy minus 5 equals x. There we are, that's the answer. X is equal to this thing over here. Now why could this be wrong? Well, the reason this is wrong is that there is still an x on the other side of the formula. Now that means that x is not equal, it's not a formula that you can take an output number for and then it will give you the input, because the input is part of the formula. So we need a formula that just has the output value in it and not the input value in it, because we want a formula that turns an output into an input. So because there are x's still on both sides, that's not the correct answer. So don't do that. So what we need to do is we need to collect our x's together. So I think the best thing to do would be to move all the x's onto the right hand side, because that will mean that both of the x terms are positive. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2xy onto the right hand side. So 3y will be left behind and it will equal 5 plus x plus 2xy. The next thing to do would be to move this 5 onto the left hand side. So it would be 3y minus 5 equals x plus 2xy. It's really important that you can get to this stage here, because at this stage here something really important has happened. All the x's are on one side and there are no x's on the other side, and anything with all the terms on the right hand side here have an x in, and none of the terms on the left hand side have an x in. Now it doesn't matter if this expression here was on the left or if this expression was on the right. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have all your x's on the right every time, just as long as all your x's are on the same side, either all on the right hand side or all on the left hand side. The next step we're going to do from here to here is to factorize the right hand side, or put it into some brackets. So x will be at the front of the bracket because x is in common between both of the terms here. Now what will go inside the bracket? Well, x times 1 will give us 1x, and then x times 2y will give us 2xy. And the final thing to do here is x is being multiplied by this bracket, so to get rid of the multiply by the bracket, we divide by the bracket. So it's going to be 3y minus 5 divided by 1 plus 2y equals x. So now the function is going to be 3x minus 5 divided by 1 plus 2x. And there we are, that's the answer in this question. What I'd actually recommend you do now is just rewind the video back to the start of the question and give it a go, so you can see me going through it again and see if you've really picked up the key elements for this question by doing the question again. Let's move on as well to have a go at a very similar question. So pause the video and give this one a go. Okay, so it's going to be y equals 2 minus x over 5 plus 3x. And as with before, the first thing we need to do is take the denominator, multiply it to the other side. Y times 5 plus 3x. The next thing to do is expand the brackets on the left-hand side. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to move all the x's on one side and anything that doesn't have an x on the other side. And I'm looking at my x terms and I'm seeing that I've got a negative one here and a positive one here. I think in this question I'd actually prefer to group my x's on the left hand side. So I'm going to add x to both sides, and that will give me 5y, add 3xy, add x equals, we have 2 left over on the right hand side. Does everything have an x in it on the left hand side? No, this 5y is on the left hand side, so I'll subtract it onto the other side. Okay, I'll start at the top now. So in this question we have all the x's on the left hand side this time, and everything that doesn't have an x in it on the right hand side. Now that's the key bits that you need to know how to get to, because the next stage is really important because we're going to factorize the left hand side. So it's going to be x and then a bracket. Now what goes inside the bracket? Well, it's going to be 3y in the first component because x times 3y will give us 3xy. And then in the second part of the bracket, it would just be plus 1 because we have 1x there, equals 2 minus 5y. And the last thing to do will be to divide by this bracket because x is currently being multiplied by this bracket. So it's going to be x equals 2 minus 5y divided by 3y plus 1. So the answer to this question is f inverse x equals 2 minus 5x divided by 3x plus 1. And there we are, that's the answer to this question. Let's give it another go with a different question, this time this one here. Pause the video and give this one a go. Okay, so it's going to be y equals x plus 7 over x minus 3. And the first thing I'll do is I'll multiply the denominator onto the other side. So y times x minus 3 equals x plus 7. Then I'll expand the brackets. Then I'll have a look at what I've got and see what side I'd prefer to move the x's to. X is positive here, x is positive here. That hasn't really helped me make my decision. The next thing I'll do to help me make my decision is have a look at the other things. That's a negative and that's a positive. And I'm trying to make as many positive things as possible here because I like to look on the positive side of life. So I think I'll add 3y onto the other side. So xy equals x plus 7, add 3y. Then I'll take away the x onto the left-hand side. And that's probably the best way of doing it. Now that we've done that, we can now factorize the left-hand side. So it's x, because x is a common factor between everything on the left-hand side, and then in the first expression, x needs to multiply by y, and then x needs to multiply by minus 1 for the next expression. And that will still equal 7 plus 3y. Next thing to do would be to divide by what's inside your bracket there. So x equals 7 plus 3y divided by y minus 1. So therefore the answer is f inverse x equals 7 add 3x, because you've got to turn the y into an x, divided by x minus 1. And there we are, that's the answer to this question. Let's move on to the next question. Pause the video and give this one a go. Okay, these questions are starting to become a little bit familiar, a little bit samey between one to the other, but they are very difficult questions. So that's why I'm giving you lots of practice on this, because I know that students generally need lots of practice on this topic. The first thing I'm going to do is multiply by the denominator onto the other side. The next thing I'm going to do is expand the brackets. It's pretty much always the same kind of steps each time. Now I'll make a decision as to which side I want to move the x's onto. This is negative 4xy, this is 2x, so I'm going to move the negative onto the other side. So it's going to be 3y equals 2x plus 4 plus 4xy. And does everything have an x in it on the right hand side? No, there's a 4 here, so I'll subtract the 4 onto the left hand side. Now I'm going to start from the top here, so it'll be 3y minus 4 equals, and I'm going to factorize the x on the right hand side. Now what will x multiply with? In the first expression, x needs to multiply with a 2. And in the second expression, x needs to multiply by a 4 and a y, so 4y. And the last thing to do would be to divide by this bracket here, so 3y minus 4 divided by 2 plus 4y equals x. So therefore the answer to this question is f inverse x equals 3x minus 4 divided by 2 plus 4x. And there we are, that's the answer to this question. Okay, so it's now your turn to have a go at some questions from the worksheet in the link from the description of the video below. So get out the worksheet, go out of this video, go into the worksheet, give the questions a real good go, answer all of them until you're really getting stuck. Maybe come back to the video and then go through the questions in the video, and we'll go through the answers in this video in a second. But really, I do want you to have a go at the questions independently from me going through them, because I want you to practice rather than just watching me do maths questions. So please make sure you've done that. Please make sure you've had a go at the questions. Okay, let's now go through the answers. So in this question here we have 7 over x minus 2. So we set y equal to 7 over x minus 2. Multiply that x minus 2 onto the other side. Expand the brackets. And then add the 2y onto the other side. And then divide by y. So the answer to this question is f inverse x equals 7 plus 2x over x. And there we are, that's the answer to question 1. Let's move on to question 2. Hopefully you've done this question here. I'm going to start with y equals 7 over x minus 2. The reason I accidentally said plus 2 there is because that's what I'm now going to do. I'm now going to add 2 to both sides. Because the minus 2 is on the side, it needs to be dealt with first. Then we'll multiply both sides by x. Now it wouldn't be a sensible idea to expand the brackets here because I can now just divide by what's inside the bracket here, and then I get x equals something. So my answer here is going to be f inverse x equals 7 over x plus 2. And there we are, that's the answer to this question. Let's move on to the next one. Hopefully you have really given this one a good go. Let's have a go at it now. 8 minus 5 over x plus 5. So x is currently in a negative expression here, so I'll add it to the other side. Then I'll take away the y that's on the left-hand side. So it'd be 8 minus y. The next thing to do will be to multiply this denominator onto the other side. So it'd be 5 equals 8 minus y times by x plus 5. The next thing to do will be to divide the bracket that's being multiplied onto the bracket with x in it. So it's going to be 5 divided by 8 minus y equals the x plus 5 bracket. And then subtract the 5 afterwards. And we'll subtract 5 on the side, like that. And there we are, that's the answer to this question. So the answer here is f inverse x equals 5 over 8 minus x minus 5. And there we are, that's the answer to this question. Let's have a go at question 4 then. So hopefully you've had a real good go at this one here before I show you how to do it. 9 minus 4 over 3 minus x. First thing, add the expression with x in it onto the other side. So y plus 4 over 3 minus x equals 9. And subtract the 9 onto the other side. The next thing to do would be to multiply the denominator of this fraction onto the other side. So it would be 9 minus y multiplied by 3 minus x. The next thing to do would be to divide by the bracket that's being multiplied by the bracket with x in it. So it would be 4 divided by 9 minus y equals 3 minus x. X is a negative expression now, so it would be a good idea to add that onto the other side. And then subtract the fraction, so it's going to be 3 minus 4 divided by 9 minus y. And there we are. Whoops, that's not the answer. The answer is f inverse x equals 3 minus 4 over 9 minus x. And there we are, that's the final answer to this question. Let's move on to the next one, pause the video and give this pretty difficult question a go. Okay, so it's going to be y equals 2x plus 3 over 4x plus 5. So the first thing to do would be to multiply by the denominator onto the other side. The next thing to do would be to expand the brackets. Okay, now it's not immediately obvious what we should do here. In fact, we actually get to choose what to do next because there's no negatives in this expression here, so it's not a case of reducing the amount of negatives. We're definitely going to have two negatives somewhere because we're going to need to move, let's say for example, the 2x onto the other side. So I'll take away 2x onto the left. But then I'll need to take away this 5y because all the x's are now on the left-hand side. So it's going to be 3 minus 5y. You might have done it the other way round. You might have moved your x's onto the right and everything else on the left, but I'll show you the answer for that at the end. The next thing I'll need to do is factorise the left-hand side, so x there in a bracket. What needs to multiply by x to make 4xy? Well, I need to multiply by 4 and a y. So it'd be 4y in the brackets. The second expression, what needs to multiply by x to make minus 2x, well, it's minus 2 equals 3 minus 5y. The next thing to do would be to then divide by what's inside the bracket to leave x on its own. Alternatively, you could have had a different answer, and that different answer could have been 5y minus 3 divided by 2 minus 4y. You can see the link between this one and the other one. Just swap all the signs on the top, swap all the signs on the bottom, and as long as it's the case, the fractions are actually equivalent. That's why I've put an equal sign in the middle. So my answer here, f minus 1x, is going to be 3 minus 5x divided by 4x minus 2. And there we are, that's the final answer in question 5. Move on to question 6, pause the video and give this one a go. Okay, let's give it a go then. So y equals 5x minus 2 over 3x plus 1. First thing to do would be to times the denominator to the other side. Then expand the brackets, 3xy plus y equals 5x minus 2. Let's decide what side to move things to. Let's look at the x's first. 3xy and 5x, both positive, okay. Let's move to the other things, minus 2 and y. Probably be easier and more positive if we move the minus 2 onto the left-hand side. So 3xy plus y plus 2 equals 5x. And then we'll subtract the 3xy, so it'll be y plus 2 equals 5x minus 3xy. There we are, that's made things as positive as we could have done. So next thing to do would be to factorise the right hand side. So x bracket. What times is by x to make 5x? That will be 5. And then in the second expression here it's 3xy. So we've already got the x at the front, so it's going to be 3y. Then divide by what's inside the bracket, so y plus 2 divided by 5 minus 3y equals x. So there we have it, a final answer of f inverse x equals x plus 2 divided by 5 minus 3x. And there we are, that's the answer in this question. Okay, let's move on to question 7 then. Pause the video and give this one a go. Okay, so it's going to be y equals 3x over 4x minus 2. First thing we need to do is move the denominator to the side by multiplying it. 4x minus 2 equals 3x. Then expand the brackets. 4xy minus 2y equals 3x. Now, in this case here, we should probably make things all positive first. And then we can take away the 3x onto the other side. The next thing to do will be to factorise the left-hand side, so put it into some brackets. 4xy, I need the 4 and the y to stay there, and the minus 3 to go in the bracket. Then I'll divide by what's inside the bracket, because it's being multiplied by the x at the moment. 4y minus 3, so therefore the final answer in this question is f inverse x equals 2x over 4x minus 3. And there we are, that's the answer in this question. Let's move on to question 8. Pause the video and give this one a go. Okay, we're getting in lots of practice with questions like this. Hopefully you're finding them roughly familiar now and you're starting to get these right. They are very difficult to start with, however. Let's multiply by the denominator, so 2 plus 3x. Then we'll expand the brackets. 2y plus 3xy equals 9 minus 3x. Let's have a look at the x's. We'll make them positive, so I'll add the 3x onto the other side. Everything needs to be x on the left-hand side, so I'll need to take away the 2y on the left-hand side. The next thing to do will be to factorise the left-hand side, so pull x out and then open a bracket. It's going to be 3 and the y that would be multiplied by the x to make 3xy. And what do I need on the right? I need a 3. Equals 9 minus 2y. Then divide by what's inside the bracket. So it's going to be 9 minus 2y divided by 3y plus 3. So the final answer here, f inverse x equals 9 minus 2x divided by 3x plus 3. And there we are, that's the answer to this question. Let's move on to question 9. Pause the video and give this one a go. Alright then, this question was a real toughie, so let's write it as y equals 7 minus 3x over x plus 2. Now the first thing to do, x is in a bit of a negative situation here, so we'll add it to the other side. And then we'll take away the 7 onto the right-hand side. And the next thing to do will be to multiply by the denominator onto the right-hand side. Okay, the next thing to do will be to expand this double pair of brackets. We've not seen a question like this yet, so hopefully you remember how to expand a double pair of brackets from earlier in the year. So it'd be 7 times x, 7 times 2, 14, minus y times x, that's minus xy, and minus y times 2, minus 2y. So we have a lot more things that need moving from one side to the other. Well, x on one side, everything else on the other. Well, we've got a minus xy here and a 7x, so I think I'll move these two things here onto the other side, subtract this one, and add this one to do the opposite signs. So it's 3x minus 7x, because that's positive on that side, so it needs to be negative on the other side, and add xy because it's negative on the right hand side. The next thing to do will be to factorise, so put x in a bracket, and then I need 3 on the first one, minus 7 on the next one, and then y on the next one. Now I could actually, what I've done here is I could have simplified 3 minus 7. 3 minus 7 is minus 4. In fact, I could have done that, just looking back at my work, could have done that at this line here, couldn't I? That would be minus 4x. Anyway, we're here now, so we'll divide by what's inside the bracket. So it's going to be 14 minus 2y over, I'm going to write this as y minus 4, because minus 4 add y is the same there. So the final answer here is going to be f inverse x equals 14 minus 2x divided by x minus 4. And there we are, that's the final answer in this question. That was a tough one, that one. Well done if you got that right. So we go at question 10 then. Whoa, a square root. Okay, so pause the video and give this one a go. Okay, so the first thing to do is write y equals the square root of 2x plus 2 divided by 3 minus 7x. Square both sides first, so y squared equals 2x plus 2 divided by 3 minus 7x. Times the denominator to the other side, so it's going to be y squared 3 minus 7x equals 2x plus 2. Now when we're doing this question, remember it's only y, the letter y, that's going to be squared. Nothing else in this question is going to be squared, just the letter y. So expanding the brackets, I get 3y squared minus 7x y squared. Remember, it's just the y that's being squared there. Next thing to do will be to sort out your x's and your y's. So this expression here is negative and this is positive on the x's, so I'll add the 7xy squared onto the right hand side, and that's going to be 3y squared equals 2x plus 2 add 7xy squared. I'll take away the 2 onto the left hand side. So it would be 2x plus 7xy squared. Next thing to do will be to factorise the right hand side, so x, and then in brackets, what do I need for the first thing? I need a 2. What do I need for the second thing? I need a 7, and y squared. Then I'll divide by what's inside the brackets, 3y squared minus 2 over 2 plus 7y squared equals x. So the final answer in this question is going to be 3x squared minus 2 over 2 plus 7x squared. And there we are, that's the answer in this question. Okay, moving on to question 11 then. Wowzers, this looks like a really tough question here then. Good luck with this one. Pause the video and give this one a go. I'll go through it now. So it's y equals 4 minus 3x plus 1 over 9 minus x. Now, the term with x in it is negative, so I think I'll add it to the other side. 3x plus 1 over 9 minus x, add y equals 4. Take away the y onto the other side now. Now I'll multiply the denominator onto the other side, so 3x plus 1 equals, and in brackets, 4 minus y times 9 minus x. The next thing to do will be to expand the double pair of brackets that are on the right hand side. So on the left it's 3x plus 1 equals 4 times 9, that's 36. 4 times minus x, that's minus 4x. Minus y times 9, that's minus 9y. And then minus y times minus x, double negative there, so that'll be add xy. Next thing to do is decide which side the x's should move on to. We've got minus 4 here, but we've got a positive here, and we've got a positive here. It'll be easier actually if we move everything onto the left hand side. So I'm going to move all the x's onto the left hand side. This negative thing here will be added to the left-hand side. This positive thing here will be subtracted to the left-hand side. So 3x, add 4x, that will give us 7x. So I've actually been able to combine this thing and this thing when I've added 4x onto the other side. Then it will be add 1, then it will be subtract xy equals minus 9 y, and we've got the add 36 as well. Next thing to do will be to take away 1 from both sides. So it's going to be minus 9y plus 35, because I've taken away 1 from both sides. And then I'll factorise x bracket 7 to times by 7 to make x, and then minus y, so that the line above is equivalent to the line below. And then divide by what's inside the brackets, I'm going to get minus 9y plus 35 over 7 minus y. And the final answer here is going to be f inverse x equals minus 9x plus 35 over 7 minus x. And there we are, that's the answer in this question here. And the final question for this worksheet here is another real tough one. Pause the video and give this one a go. So it's going to be y equals the square root of 4 minus 3x over 9x minus 2. Let's get rid of the square root first. So it would be y squared equals 4 minus 3x over 9x minus 2. Let's multiply the denominator onto the other side. 9x minus 2 equals 4 minus 3x. Expand the brackets, 9xy squared minus 2y squared equals 4 minus 3x. Next thing to do will be to decide which side x goes on. X is positive here and negative here, so I think I'll move it onto the left. So 9xy squared minus 2y squared, add 3x to the other side, equals 4. Then I'll add 2y squared onto the right hand side. It's negative on the left hand side. Then factorise the x, and remember here it's only y, the letter y, that's being squared in this expression. So it's 9 and a y squared for the left hand one, and it's a 3 for the right hand one. Next thing to do will be to divide by what's inside the bracket, so it's going to be 4 plus 2y squared over 9y squared plus 3. And the final answer in this question, f inverse x, equals, it's going to be 4 plus 2x squared over 9x squared plus 3. And there we are, that's the final answer in this question and in this video. Wow, that was such a difficult video here, finding harder inverse functions. That was really difficult. Well done if you followed that all the way through and if you've got some questions correct as we've gone along. Hopefully you've not just watched the video passively and just wrote down the correct answers in your exercise book. Hopefully you've really given it a go and really challenged your brain to answer these questions. Great, thanks very much for watching.